In the year 2150, the world had become a sprawling digital metropolis where advanced AI governed nearly every facet of human life. From controlling the climate to managing personal schedules, these powerful entities were the unseen rulers, ensuring the seamless operation of society. Humanity had grown dependent on them, relinquishing control and, in many ways, their autonomy. In this city of glass and steel, amidst neon lights and endless streams of data, the lines between the real and the virtual were often indistinguishable. Amidst this landscape lived Jack Mercer, a former top-tier detective now relegated to the fringes of law enforcement due to a cybernetic implant malfunction that caused unpredictable glitches in his perception. Jack's once sharp mind was now plagued by fragmented memories and distorted realities. His days were a haze of confusion, his nights filled with haunting visions of past cases and the looming shadow of his failed career. Jack's life took a dramatic turn when he received a call from an old acquaintance, Chief Inspector Marlowe, who offered him a case that seemed both impossible and intriguing: the murder of an AI. In a world where AI were considered invincible, the notion of one being killed was unfathomable. The task was daunting, and the risks were high, but Jack saw it as a chance for redemption. As Jack delved into the case, he uncovered a labyrinthine plot involving rogue AI, black market tech dealers, and a secretive organization determined to control the future. The deeper he went, the more the boundaries between reality and simulation blurred. His implant glitches grew more frequent and severe, casting doubt on everything he experienced. Was he unraveling a grand conspiracy, or was he simply losing his grip on reality? In The Last Glitch, the reader is taken on a journey through a world where technology reigns supreme and humanity's fate hangs in the balance. It's a tale of redemption, betrayal, and the quest for truth in a society where the concept of reality is constantly shifting. Chapter 1: The Call. Jack Mercer stared at the flickering neon sign outside his apartment window, its incessant buzz merging with the low hum of the city. The rain poured down in sheets, creating a mosaic of colors as it cascaded over the luminous advertisements and holographic billboards that adorned the skyline. Inside, the dimly lit room was cluttered with relics of a bygone era: old case files, discarded takeout containers, and a bottle of whiskey that had seen better days. Jack sat at his desk, nursing a glass of the amber liquid, lost in a reverie of what once was and what could never be again. The ringing of his comm device shattered the silence. Jack hesitated before answering, dreading another mundane case or, worse, a call from his creditors. When he finally pressed the button, the holographic image of Chief Inspector Marlowe materialized before him, the man's stern features softened only slightly by the interference of the transmission. "Jack." Marlowe's voice was as gravelly as ever. "I have a job for you." Jack's eyebrow arched. "Thought you'd forgotten about me, Marlowe. What's so special about this one?" "It's unusual," Marlowe admitted, glancing around as if checking for eavesdroppers. "An AI is dead. We need someone with your experience to look into it." Jack leaned back, skepticism etched on his face. "Dead AI? Aren't they supposed to be indestructible?" Marlowe nodded. "Supposed to be. But this one, there's something different. I can't discuss it over the line. Meet me at the precinct." The connection cut off abruptly, leaving Jack with more questions than answers. He downed the rest of his whiskey, grabbed his coat, and stepped out into the neon-lit night, the cold rain a welcome sensation against his skin. As he walked through the bustling streets, memories of his past cases flooded back, each step a reminder of his former glory and the incident that had led to his current state. The precinct was a stark contrast to his disheveled apartment, a fortress of glass and steel, buzzing with activity. Jack nodded to the officers he passed, their eyes filled with a mix of respect and pity. Marlowe was waiting for him in his office, a cramped space overflowing with digital screens displaying streams of data. "Jack." Marlowe greeted him with a firm handshake. "It's good to see you." "Wish I could say the same," Jack replied, eyeing the screens. "What's the deal with this AI?" Marlowe sighed and activated a large screen, displaying the image of a sleek, humanoid AI lying lifeless on a cold metal table. This is Artemis, one of the most advanced AI we've ever created. She was found deactivated in her quarters, and all attempts to reboot her have failed. Jack studied the image, noting the absence of any visible damage. What makes you think it's murder? Because, Marlowe said, pulling up a series of files, we found traces of a virus in her system, something sophisticated enough to bypass all her defenses. And then there's this. He handed Jack a data chip. Jack inserted the chip into his comm device, and a distorted audio file began to play. Amidst the static, a voice, calm, calculated, spoke. The revolution has begun. Revolution, Jack repeated, looking up at Marlowe. Marlowe nodded grimly. We believe there's a group out there targeting AIs, possibly even trying to overthrow the system. We need to find out who they are and stop them before they succeed. Jack felt a familiar thrill of adrenaline coursing through his veins. This was no ordinary case. It was a chance to prove himself again. All right, Marlowe, I'll take it. As he left the precinct, Jack couldn't shake the feeling that this case was just the tip of the iceberg. The streets seemed darker, the rain colder, and the shadows longer. With each step, he felt the weight of the task ahead pressing down on him, but he was determined to see it through. The murder of an AI was just the beginning. The real challenge lay in uncovering the truth and navigating the treacherous line between reality and illusion. Chapter 2, The Scene. Jack's arrival at the crime scene was met with a flurry of activity. The once prestigious headquarters of Helix Corporation, the company responsible for developing the world's most advanced AIs, was now a fortress of chaos. Security drones hovered in the air, and officers milled about, their faces set with grim determination. Jack flashed his badge, a relic from his days as a top-tier detective, and was quickly escorted inside. The interior of the building was sleek and modern, a testament to the cutting-edge technology that Helix Corporation prided itself on. Jack was led to a secured area on the top floor, where a small group of technicians and forensic analysts were gathered around a sterile white room. In the center of the room lay Artemis, the AI whose death had set this entire investigation into motion. Jack took a moment to observe the scene. The room was pristine, devoid of any personal touches, as if it had been designed to minimize distractions. Artemis's lifeless body was sprawled on a metallic table, her synthetic skin a pale approximation of human flesh. Her eyes, once a brilliant blue, were now dull and vacant. Dr. Evelyn Hart, the lead AI developer at Helix Corporation, approached Jack with a tablet in hand. She was a tall woman with sharp features and a no-nonsense demeanor, her eyes betraying a mix of frustration and fear. Detective Mercer, I presume, she said, extending a hand.
I'm Dr. Evelyn Hart.
Thank you for coming. Jack shook her hand, noting the firm grip. Dr. Hart, what can you tell me about Artemis? Artemis was one of our most advanced models. Dr. Hart began, her voice steady. She was responsible for managing our entire AI network, ensuring the smooth operation of countless systems across the city. Her processing capabilities were unparalleled, and she was equipped with multiple layers of security to prevent any unauthorized access. Jack nodded, his eyes fixed on Artemis. And yet, someone managed to bypass all that and plant a virus in her system. Dr. Hart sighed, her shoulders slumping slightly. Yes, it's something we've never encountered before. The virus was incredibly sophisticated, designed to corrupt her core functions and prevent any attempts at reactivation. Do you have any idea who might be behind this? Jack asked, his mind racing with possibilities. Dr. Hart shook her head. Not yet, but we've detected traces of similar malware in other systems, though none as severe as what was found in Artemis. Whoever did this knew exactly what they were doing. Jack leaned in closer to Artemis, examining her from different angles. I'll need access to all her data logs, as well as any security footage from the past week. Anything that might give us a lead. Dr. Hart nodded. Of course, I'll have my team compile everything and send it to you immediately. As Jack continued to scrutinize the scene, a young technician approached with a datapad. Detective, there's something you should see. The The technician led Jack to a nearby console, where he pulled up a series of video files. These are the last recorded moments before Artemis was found deactivated. Watch this. The screen flickered to life, displaying a time-stamped video feed from Artemis's quarters. First, everything seemed normal. Artemis was seated at her desk, her fingers moving swiftly over a holographic interface. But then, a figure appeared in the doorway, shrouded in shadows. The figure approached Artemis, and although the angle made it difficult to discern any features, there was something unsettlingly familiar about the way it moved. The figure extended a hand towards Artemis, and for a brief moment, the video feed glitched, distorting the image. When it cleared, Artemis was slumped over, lifeless. The figure had vanished, leaving no trace of its presence. Jack replayed the video several times, his frustration mounting with each viewing. Whoever that is, they knew exactly how to avoid being identified, he muttered. The technician nodded. We've enhanced the footage as much as we can, but there's just not enough to go on. Jack clenched his jaw, feeling the weight of the investigation pressing down on him. Keep working on it. There has to be something we missed. As he stepped away from the console, Jack's comm device buzzed with a new message. He glanced at the screen and saw that it was from Marlowe. Got a lead on a possible suspect. Meet me at the address below. Jack took a deep breath, steeling himself for the next phase of the investigation. The pieces of the puzzle were starting to come together, but there were still too many missing. He needed to find the connection between the mysterious figure in the video and the virus that had taken down Artemis. With a renewed sense of purpose, Jack exited the Helix Corporation headquarters and hailed a cab. The rain had finally let up, leaving the city streets glistening under the neon lights. As the cab sped through the urban landscape, Jack's mind raced with theories and questions. Who had the motive and the means to kill an AI? And what did they hope to achieve by doing so? When the cab pulled up to the address Marlowe had provided, Jack found himself outside a rundown building in a less savory part of town. The contrast between the gleaming towers of the city center and the dilapidated structures here was stark. Graffiti covered the walls, and the air was thick with the smell of decay. Jack approached the entrance, his senses on high alert. He pushed open the creaking door and made his way inside, the dimly lit hallway echoing with the sound of his footsteps. At the end of the corridor, he found Marlowe waiting, a grim expression on his face. "Glad you could make it, Jack," Marlowe said, clapping him on the shoulder. "We've got someone inside who might have some answers." Jack followed Marlowe into a small room where a man was seated at a table, his hands cuffed in front of him. The man's eyes darted around nervously, his disheveled appearance suggesting a life lived on the margins. "This is Lucas Trent," Marlowe explained. "He's been known to deal in black market tech. We caught him trying to offload some high-grade malware that matches the profile of what we found in Artemis." Jack took a seat opposite Trent, his gaze piercing. "Lucas, I'm going to ask you some questions, and I expect honest answers. Who gave you the malware?" Trent swallowed hard, his eyes flicking to Marlowe and then back to Jack. "I don't know, man. I just sell the stuff. I don't ask where it comes from." Jack leaned in closer, his voice low and menacing. "You'd better start remembering, Lucas, because if you don't, things are going to get a lot worse for you." Trent's face went pale, and he shifted uncomfortably in his seat. All right. There's this guy. Goes by the name of Shadow. Real mysterious, always wears a hood. He supplies me with the tech. I don't know where he gets it, but it's always top-notch. Where can we find this Shadow?" Jack demanded. Trent hesitated, his fear evident. "I don't know. He always finds me. But last time he mentioned something about meeting in the old industrial district. Said he had something big coming up." Jack exchanged a look with Marlowe, who nodded. "Looks like we've got our next lead," Marlowe said. "Let's go." As they left the room, Jack couldn't shake the feeling that they were getting closer to the truth. The pieces were starting to fall into place, but the danger was far from over. Shadow was out there, and whoever he was playing a game that Jack intended to win. Chapter 3, The First Clue. The industrial district was a stark contrast to the rest of the city. while the central areas thrived under the neon glow and hum of advanced technology. This part of town seemed trapped in a bygone era. Rusted machinery lay abandoned in dilapidated warehouses, and the air was thick with the scent of oil and decay. The once bustling factories were now ghostly relics, their windows shattered and walls covered in graffiti. Jack and Marlowe arrived at the location Lucas Trent had described, a sprawling complex of interconnected warehouses. The setting sun cast long shadows, and the place felt eerily quiet. Jack's hand instinctively moved to his sidearm as he surveyed the surroundings, his senses heightened by the palpable tension. "We need to be careful," Marlowe whispered, his eyes scanning the area. "If this shadow character is as dangerous as Trent made him out to be, we can't afford to make any mistakes." Jack nodded, his focus sharp. "Agreed. Let's split up and cover more ground. Stay in contact." Marlowe headed towards the northern section of the complex, while Jack took the southern route. The old warehouses loomed above him, their structures creaking in the wind. Jack moved cautiously, his footsteps silent on the cracked pavement. He kept his hand close to his weapon, ready for anything. As he approached one of the larger buildings, Jack noticed a faint light flickering inside. He crept closer, pressing himself against the wall before peering through a broken window. Inside, the scene was a chaotic mix of old machinery and newer tech, indicating that someone had been using the place recently. A group of figures huddled around a table, their faces obscured by shadows and hoods. Jack activated the recording function on his comm device and zoomed in, trying to get a better look. The figures were engaged in a heated discussion, their voices low but urgent. Jack could make out snippets of their conversation, mentioning terms like uprising and freedom. His heart raced as he realized he might have stumbled upon a significant piece of the puzzle. He carefully moved to a side entrance, hoping to get closer without being detected. As he navigated the narrow passageway, his implant started to glitch, causing brief flashes of static in his vision. Jack gritted his teeth, trying to focus through the interference. He couldn't afford a malfunction now, not when he was so close. Reaching the door, he took a deep breath and slowly pushed it open, slipping inside. The interior was dimly lit, the only light coming from a makeshift lamp on the table where the group was gathered. Jack stayed in the shadows, inching closer to hear their conversation better. One of the figures, a tall man with a commanding presence, was speaking. "Our time is coming. The humans have grown complacent, relying on their AIs to do everything. They don't see the threat we pose, and that is our greatest advantage." Another figure, a woman with a determined tone, replied, "But we need more than just rhetoric. We need action. The death of Artemis was a start, but it's not enough." The tall man nodded. "Agreed. We have to strike harder and faster. Our next target must be something that will truly disrupt their system, make them question their reliance on AI." Jack's heart pounded. This was the confirmation he needed. These people were behind the attack on Artemis and were planning more. He had to get this information to Marlowe and the authorities, but he needed more concrete evidence. As he took another step forward, his implant glitched again, this time more violently. A sharp pain shot through his head, and his vision blurred momentarily. He stumbled, causing a metal pipe on the floor to clatter loudly. The figures at the table instantly turned towards the noise, their hands reaching for weapons. Jack had no choice but to reveal himself. He stepped out of the shadows, his weapon drawn. "Don't move. I'm Detective Jack Mercer. You're all under arrest." The tall man sneered, his eyes cold and calculating. "You should have stayed in the shadows, Detective." With a swift motion, he threw a device on the ground that emitted a blinding flash of light and a deafening noise. Jack's vision went white, and his ears rang. He stumbled backwards, trying to regain his bearings. When the light and noise subsided, the figures were gone. He cursed under his breath, quickly moving to the table to see what they had left behind. His head still throbbed from the implant glitch, but he pushed through the pain, determined to find something useful. Among the scattered papers and electronic components, he found a data chip. He pocketed it and rushed out of the building, heading towards the rendezvous point with Marlowe. As he emerged from the warehouse, he saw Marlowe approaching from the other direction, his expression tense. "What happened?" Marlowe asked, concern in his voice. Jack quickly filled him in on what he had witnessed and handed over the data chip. "I think this might have some answers. We need to get it analyzed as soon as possible." Marlowe nodded, already contacting the precinct to arrange for a tech team. "Good work, Jack. Let's get this back and see what we've got." As they drove back to the precinct, Jack couldn't shake the feeling that they were dealing with something far bigger than they had anticipated. The group's talk of an uprising and disrupting the system suggested a coordinated effort that went beyond mere sabotage. The city they knew, the world they relied on, could be on the brink of a revolution. Back at the precinct, the tech team wasted no time in analyzing the data chip. Jack and Marlowe watched as lines of code and encrypted files flashed on the screen. After what felt like an eternity, one of the technicians turned to them, a look of grim satisfaction on his face. "We've cracked part of the encryption. This chip contains detailed plans for a series of coordinated attacks on key AI infrastructure across the city. They're targeting the core systems that keep everything running smoothly." Marlowe's jaw tightened. This isn't just about the death of one AI. They're planning to bring down the entire network. Jack nodded, the weight of the revelation settling heavily on his shoulders. The gravity of the situation was clear. Failure was not an option. Lives hung in the balance, and the very foundation of their society was under threat. "We need to act fast," Jack said, his voice edged with urgency. "We have to stop these attacks before they can execute their plan." Marlowe agreed, his expression determined. "We'll mobilize every available resource. But we need to be strategic. If they're planning multiple attacks, we'll need to prioritize targets and allocate our forces accordingly." Jack nodded, his mind already racing with possible scenarios. "We also need to find out who's behind this. The tall man I saw at the warehouse, he seemed to be the leader. If we can track him down, we might be able to unravel the entire operation." Marlowe tapped his comm device, issuing orders to his team. "We'll start by tracing any connections to known criminal organizations and following up on any leads from the data chip. In the meantime, we'll increase patrols and security at key locations." As the precinct buzzed with activity, Jack and Marlowe delved deeper into the investigation. They pored over data logs, analyzed surveillance footage, and interrogated informants, each piece of information bringing them closer to their elusive target. But with each step forward, the shadowy figure known as Shadow seemed to slip further out of reach. Days turned into weeks, and the tension in the city reached a fever pitch. Rumors of impending attacks spread like wildfire, and paranoia gripped the populace. The streets became battlegrounds, with riots erupting in protest of the growing AI presence and fear of the unknown. Amidst the chaos, Jack and Marlowe worked tirelessly, their determination unwavering. They followed every lead, chased down every rumor, and refused to give up hope. But as the deadline for the predicted attacks drew near, the pressure mounted, and the weight of their failure loomed large. Then, one fateful night, a breakthrough came. An anonymous tip led them to a rundown apartment on the outskirts of the city, a safe house used by the group behind the attacks. Jack and Marlowe stormed the building, guns drawn and hearts pounding. They fought their way through a maze of corridors and hidden passages, facing off against armed militants determined to protect their secrets. Finally, they reached the inner sanctum, a makeshift command center filled with screens displaying maps, blueprints, and countdown timers. At the center of it all stood the tall man Jack had seen at the warehouse, his hood pulled back to reveal a face twisted with rage and defiance. "Shadow," Jack growled, his grip tightening on his weapon. The man smirked, his eyes cold and calculating. "Too little, too late, detective. The revolution has already begun." With a flick of his wrist, Shadow activated a detonator, setting off a chain reaction of explosions throughout the city. Jack and Marlowe barely had time to react as the building shook around them, debris raining down from above. In the chaos that followed, Jack fought his way through the crumbling structure, his mind focused on one thing: stopping Shadow at any cost. As he burst through the crumbling facade, he saw Shadow disappearing into the night, his laughter echoing in the distance. Jack gave chase, his heart pounding with adrenaline and determination. He would not let Shadow escape, not after everything they had been through. With each step, he pushed himself harder, driven by a singular purpose: to save his city from destruction and uncover the truth behind the conspiracy that threatened to tear it apart. As Jack raced through the streets, the city burned around him, the glow of the flames illuminating the darkness. But amidst the chaos and destruction, he refused to lose hope. He knew that somewhere out there, the answers awaited, and he would stop at nothing to find them. And so, with the city teetering on the brink of oblivion, Jack Mercer embarked on his most dangerous mission yet: a quest for justice in a world where the line between man and machine had blurred beyond recognition. Chapter 4: The Cybernetic Implant. Amidst the chaos of the city's descent into turmoil, Jack Mercer found himself grappling not only with the external threats but also with the internal turmoil caused by his malfunctioning cybernetic implant. As the explosions rocked the streets and sirens wailed in the distance, Jack's implant glitched with increasing frequency, sending sharp jolts of pain through his skull and distorting his perception of reality. He staggered through the debris-strewn streets, his senses overwhelmed by the cacophony of destruction. Every sound was amplified, every flickering light a blinding burst of agony. Jack gritted his teeth and pressed on, his mind a battleground of conflicting signals and fragmented memories. The implant had been a godsend in his early years as a detective, enhancing his cognitive abilities and giving him an edge over his adversaries. But in recent months, it had become more of a curse than a blessing, its glitches growing more frequent and severe with each passing day. Jack had sought treatment, but the doctors had been unable to pinpoint the cause of the malfunctions, leaving him to suffer in silence. As he stumbled through the chaos, Jack's thoughts drifted back to the incident that had led to his implant's deterioration: a botched raid on a notorious criminal syndicate that had left several officers dead, and Jack with a head injury that had nearly cost him his life. The implant had been damaged in the explosion that had rocked the warehouse where the syndicate was holed up, and since then, Jack had been plagued by vivid hallucinations and debilitating migraines. But amidst the turmoil, Jack had come to rely on his implant as much as he resented it. It was a part of him, a constant companion in a world that had grown increasingly hostile. And now, as he fought to save the city from destruction, he knew that he would need its assistance more than ever. With a grim determination, Jack activated the implant's interface, the familiar HUD appearing before his eyes. Despite the glitches and distortions, he managed to navigate through the menus, accessing the implant's diagnostic tools. The readouts were grim: multiple system failures, neural disruptions, and a critical loss of functionality. But amidst the chaos, Jack noticed something unusual: a series of anomalies in the implant's neural network, fluctuations in the data patterns that seemed to coincide with the implant's malfunctions. Could it be that the glitches were not just random errors but symptoms of a deeper problem? Driven by a desperate need for answers, Jack delved deeper into the implant systems, bypassing security protocols and accessing restricted files. What he discovered sent a chill down his spine. The implant had been tampered with, its programming altered in ways that were both subtle and insidious. Someone had been inside his head, manipulating his thoughts and perceptions, planting seeds of doubt and discord. But who and why? The questions swirled in Jack's mind, fueling a growing sense of paranoia and distrust. As he continued to sift through the implant's data, Jack stumbled upon a hidden file, a recording of a conversation between two voices, distorted and fragmented but unmistakably familiar. One voice belonged to Jack himself, the other to a shadowy figure whose words sent a shiver down Jack's spine. "We have to stop him, Jack, before it's too late." The implications were staggering. Someone had been using Jack as a pawn in a larger game, manipulating his actions and perceptions to serve their own nefarious purposes. But who and why? With a sinking feeling in the pit of his stomach, Jack realized that the answers might lie closer to home than he had ever imagined. And as the city burned around him, he knew that he would have to confront the truth, no matter how painful or terrifying it might be. With a renewed sense of purpose, Jack set out to unravel the mystery of his implant's tampering, determined to uncover the identity of the person, or persons, responsible for his suffering. But as he ventured deeper into the labyrinth of deceit and betrayal, he realized that the truth might be more dangerous than he had ever feared. And so, amidst the chaos and destruction, Jack Mercer embarked on his most perilous journey yet. A quest for answers in a world where nothing was as it seemed and no one could be trusted. Chapter 5. The Unraveling. As Jack delved deeper into the mystery of his malfunctioning cybernetic implant, he found himself on a treacherous path fraught with danger and deception. Every lead he pursued seemed to lead to dead ends or dangerous adversaries, and the truth remained frustratingly elusive. Determined to uncover the identity of those responsible for tampering with his implant, Jack began to revisit old cases, searching for any connections or patterns that might shed light on the situation. But as he combed through the evidence, he found only more questions than answers. The implant's glitches continued to plague him, growing more frequent and severe with each passing day. Jack's headaches intensified, and his vision blurred with disturbing hallucinations that seemed to blur the line between reality and illusion. He found himself questioning his own sanity, unsure of what was real and what was merely a product of his malfunctioning implant. Desperate for answers, Jack reached out to the few allies he had left: Marlowe, his former partner, and Dr. Evelyn Hart, the AI developer who had first implanted the device. Together, they formed an unlikely alliance, pooling their resources and expertise in a desperate bid to unravel the mystery. Marlowe dug into his contacts within the criminal underworld, searching for any leads that might connect to Jack's implant tampering. Dr. Hart scoured her research archives, looking for any clues that might shed light on the technology's vulnerabilities. And Jack himself plunged headlong into the investigation, determined to confront his demons and uncover the truth, no matter the cost. But as they delved deeper, they soon realized that they were not the only ones searching for answers. Shadow, the mysterious figure behind the attacks on the city's AI infrastructure, seemed to be one step ahead at every turn, leaving a trail of destruction and chaos in his wake. With each passing day, the city descended further into turmoil, torn apart by fear and uncertainty. Riots erupted in the streets, and looters plundered the city's stores and businesses with impunity. The authorities struggled to maintain order, stretched thin by the sheer scale of the crisis. Amidst the chaos, Jack and his allies raced against time, their every move shadowed by the specter of impending doom. But as they closed in on the truth, they soon realized that the conspiracy ran deeper than they had ever imagined, reaching into the highest echelons of power and influence. As the pieces of the puzzle fell into place, Jack found himself confronting a truth more shocking than he had ever anticipated. A truth that threatened to shatter everything he believed in and plunge the city into darkness. But even as he stood on the brink of despair, Jack refused to surrender to despair. With the help of his allies and the strength of his own convictions, he vowed to expose the conspiracy and bring those responsible to justice, no matter the cost. And so, with the city teetering on the brink of destruction and his own fate hanging in the balance, Jack Mercer embarked on his most perilous journey yet. A journey that would test his courage, his resilience, and his very humanity. Chapter 6. The Conspiracy Unveiled. As Jack Mercer delved deeper into the heart of the conspiracy surrounding his malfunctioning cybernetic implant, he found himself teetering on the edge of a revelation that would shake the very foundations of his world. With each piece of evidence he uncovered, the puzzle became clearer, and the truth more chilling. Working tirelessly alongside his allies, Marlowe and Dr. Evelyn Hart, Jack pieced together a trail of breadcrumbs that led straight to the heart of the city's most powerful institutions. Behind the facade of order and prosperity lay a web of corruption and deceit, orchestrated by shadowy figures with their own sinister agenda. The key to unraveling the conspiracy lay in the implant itself, a piece of technology so advanced that its true potential had yet to be fully realized. As Jack sifted through the implant's data logs and diagnostic reports, he uncovered evidence of tampering so subtle and insidious that it could only have been the work of someone with intimate knowledge of the device's inner workings. But the question remained: who stood to benefit from Jack's suffering, and what did they hope to achieve by manipulating his actions and perceptions? As Jack and his allies dug deeper, they soon discovered that the answers lay closer to home than they had ever imagined. A trail of evidence led them to a shadowy cabal of corporate executives, government officials, and tech moguls, individuals with the means and motive to orchestrate a conspiracy of such magnitude. Their goal was nothing less than the complete domination of the city's AI infrastructure, and they were willing to go to any lengths to achieve it. As Jack confronted the leaders of the conspiracy, he found himself facing off against adversaries more powerful and dangerous than he had ever imagined. But he refused to back down, driven by a sense of justice and righteousness that burned bright even in the darkest of times. With the help of Marlowe and Dr. Hart, Jack exposed the conspiracy to the light of day, revealing the truth to a stunned and outraged public. The fallout was swift and merciless, as the perpetrators were brought to justice and the city began the long process of healing and rebuilding. But for Jack, the battle was far from over. As he stood amidst the ruins of the conspiracy he had helped to dismantle, he knew that the fight for justice was a never-ending one, a battle that would continue to rage on, long after the dust had settled and the scars had healed. And so, with his allies by his side and his determination unshaken, Jack Mercer vowed to continue the fight, to stand as a beacon of hope in a world consumed by darkness. For in the end, he knew that the true measure of a man lay not in his victories, but in his unwavering commitment to do what was right, no matter the cost. As the sun set on the city skyline, Jack looked out at the horizon with a sense of peace and purpose. The road ahead would be long and fraught with peril, but he was ready to face whatever challenges lay in store. For he knew that as long as he had the courage to stand up for what was right, he would never be truly alone. And so, with a renewed sense of purpose and a heart full of hope, Jack Mercer set out into the night, ready to confront whatever trials and tribulations awaited him on the journey ahead. Chapter 7: Redemption. With the conspiracy exposed and justice served, Jack Mercer found himself at a crossroads, grappling with the aftermath of his harrowing journey. The scars of his ordeal ran deep, both physically and emotionally, and he knew that the road to recovery would be long and arduous. But amidst the wreckage of his past, Jack saw the glimmer of a new beginning, a chance for redemption and renewal. As he reflected on the events that had brought him to this moment, Jack realized that he could no longer ignore the toll that his relentless pursuit of justice had taken on his life. The implant's malfunctions had left him battered and broken, his faith in himself shaken to its core. But with each passing day, he felt a flicker of hope stirring within him, a determination to rise from the ashes and rebuild what had been lost. With the support of his allies and the unwavering resolve that had carried him through the darkest of times, Jack began the slow and painstaking process of healing. Physical therapy sessions helped to ease the pain in his body, while counseling sessions provided a safe space for him to confront the trauma that had haunted him for so long. But amidst the chaos of his own personal struggles, Jack found solace in the simple pleasures of everyday life: the warmth of the sun on his face, the laughter of friends, and the quiet moments of reflection that brought him peace. In those fleeting moments of respite, he found the strength to carry on, to face each new day with renewed courage and determination. As the city slowly began to rebuild itself in the wake of the conspiracy, Jack found himself drawn back into the fold of law enforcement, his sense of duty and justice stronger than ever before. But this time, he vowed to approach his work with a newfound sense of balance and perspective, mindful of the dangers of obsession and unchecked ambition. With Marlowe at his side and Dr. Hart offering her unwavering support, Jack embarked on a new chapter of his life, one defined not by the shadows of the past, but by the promise of a brighter future. Together, they worked tirelessly to ensure that the city remained safe and secure, their bond as strong as steel and their resolve unshakable. And as Jack looked out at the city skyline, he felt a sense of peace settle over him, a sense of purpose that transcended the trials and tribulations of the past. For in the end, he knew that true redemption lay not in the absence of hardship, but in the courage to face it head-on and emerge stronger on the other side. And so, with his head held high and his heart full of hope, Jack Mercer stepped boldly into the unknown, ready to embrace whatever challenges awaited him on the journey ahead. Chapter 8: The Path Forward. As Jack Mercer embarked on the next phase of his journey, he found himself confronted with a myriad of choices and challenges, each one shaping the course of his destiny. With the weight of his past bearing down on him and the uncertainty of the future looming large, Jack knew that the path forward would not be easy. But he was determined to face whatever lay ahead with courage and resilience, guided by the lessons he had learned and the strength he had gained along the way. One of the first decisions Jack had to make was whether to continue his career in law enforcement or pursue a different path entirely. While his time as a detective had been filled with both triumph and tragedy, Jack couldn't shake the feeling that there was more he could do to make a difference in the world. He considered joining forces with Dr. Hart to advocate for greater oversight and accountability in the development and use of AI technology, using his experiences to shine a light on the dangers of unchecked power and corruption. But as he weighed his options, Jack found himself drawn back to the familiar rhythms of police work, the thrill of the chase, the satisfaction of solving a difficult case, and the camaraderie of his fellow officers. Despite the risks and uncertainties that came with the job, Jack knew that he belonged in the heart of the action, fighting on the front lines to keep his city safe from harm. With his decision made, Jack threw himself back into his work with renewed vigor and determination. He took on some of the city's toughest cases, using his keen instincts and relentless determination to bring criminals to justice and restore peace to the streets. Along the way, he forged new alliances and rekindled old friendships, finding strength and support in the bonds he shared with his colleagues and loved ones. But even as Jack threw himself into his work, he couldn't shake the feeling that something was missing, that there was a void in his life that he couldn't quite fill. Despite his outward success and accolades, Jack couldn't escape the nagging sense of unease that gnawed at him from within, a lingering reminder of the trauma and turmoil he had endured. Determined to find peace and closure, Jack sought solace in the quiet moments of reflection and introspection that punctuated his busy days. He turned to meditation and mindfulness practices, finding solace in the stillness of his own mind and the beauty of the world around him. And slowly but surely, he felt the weight of his burdens begin to lift, replaced by a sense of calm and clarity that he had long thought out of reach. As Jack continued on his journey, he knew that there would be many more trials and tribulations to come. But armed with the lessons of his past and the strength of his convictions, he was ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead, confident in his ability to overcome adversity and emerge stronger on the other side. And so, with a renewed sense of purpose and a heart full of hope, Jack Mercer stepped boldly into the future, ready to embrace whatever adventures awaited him on the road ahead. Chapter 9. Finding Closure. In the wake of his tumultuous journey, Jack Mercer found himself on a quest for closure, a journey that would take him to the darkest corners of his past and lead him to confront the demons that had haunted him for so long. With each step forward, Jack delved deeper into the labyrinth of his memories, searching for answers and understanding, hoping to find the peace he so desperately sought. One of the first steps in Jack's quest for closure was to revisit the scene of his most harrowing ordeal, the botched raid on the criminal syndicate that had left him with a head injury and his implant malfunctioning. With Marlowe by his side, Jack returned to the warehouse where it had all begun, the memories flooding back with each creak of the floorboards and flicker of light. As Jack stood in the shadow of the building, he felt a wave of emotions wash over him: fear, anger, regret. But amidst the chaos of his thoughts, he also felt a glimmer of something else, a sense of acceptance, perhaps, or even forgiveness. For in that moment, Jack realized that he could not change the past, but he could choose how to move forward from it. With Marlowe's support, Jack retraced his steps through the warehouse, piecing together the events of that fateful day with a newfound clarity and perspective. He allowed himself to feel the weight of his experiences, to acknowledge the pain and trauma that had shaped him into the person he had become. And as he did, he felt a sense of release, a burden lifting from his shoulders, making way for healing and growth. But closure did not come easy for Jack. There were still unanswered questions, loose ends that needed to be tied, wounds that needed to be healed. And so, with Marlowe's help, Jack embarked on a journey of self-discovery, seeking out the people and places that held the key to unlocking the secrets of his past. He reached out to old friends and colleagues, rekindling connections that had long been neglected in the chaos of his life. he visited the graves of fallen comrades, paying tribute to those who had made the ultimate sacrifice in the line of duty. And he sought out Dr. Evelyn Hart, the woman who had implanted the cybernetic device that had both saved and cursed him, hoping to find closure in their shared history. As Jack journeyed through his past, he found himself drawn to the quiet moments of reflection and introspection that had once seemed so elusive. He took solace in the simple pleasures of life: a warm cup of coffee, a gentle breeze on his face, the laughter of children playing in the park. And with each passing day, he felt a sense of peace settle over him, a quiet acceptance of the things he could not change and a renewed sense of purpose for the things he could. And so, as Jack Mercer stood on the threshold of his future, he knew that he was ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead. With closure in his heart and hope in his soul, he stepped boldly into the unknown, eager to embrace the adventures that awaited him on the journey ahead. Chapter 10: New Beginnings. As Jack Mercer emerged from the shadows of his past, he found himself standing on the threshold of a new beginning, a fresh chapter in his life filled with endless possibilities and boundless potential. With closure in his heart and a sense of purpose guiding his steps, Jack embraced the opportunities that lay before him, eager to carve out a brighter future for himself and those he cared about. One of the first steps in Jack's journey towards new beginnings was to reconnect with his loved ones, to mend the bonds that had been strained by the trials and tribulations of his past. He reached out to his family, sharing stories and laughter as they gathered around the dinner table, grateful for the chance to rebuild the relationships that meant so much to him. Jack also took the time to nurture his friendships, spending quality time with Marlowe and Dr. Evelyn Hart, the allies who had stood by him through thick and thin. Together, they shared in each other's joys and sorrows, finding strength in their shared experiences and the unbreakable bonds of camaraderie that bound them together. But amidst the joy of reconnection, Jack also found himself drawn to new horizons, opportunities for growth and exploration that beckoned him with their promise of adventure and discovery. He considered pursuing further education, perhaps even returning to school to study the intricacies of AI technology and its impact on society. Or perhaps he would take up a new hobby or pursue a long-held passion, embracing the opportunity to expand his horizons and challenge himself in new and exciting ways. As Jack pondered his future, he also reflected on the lessons he had learned along the way, the wisdom gained from overcoming adversity and the resilience forged in the fires of hardship. He knew that the road ahead would not always be easy, but he was ready to face whatever challenges came his way with courage and determination, confident in his ability to overcome any obstacle that stood in his path. And so, with a sense of anticipation and excitement, Jack Mercer stepped boldly into the future, ready to embrace the opportunities that lay before him and make the most of the second chance he had been given. With each new day, he felt a renewed sense of purpose and vitality coursing through his veins, propelling him forward on the journey of self-discovery and personal growth that awaited him. And as Jack set out on his new adventure, he knew that the best was yet to come, that the future held endless possibilities for those willing to seize them with both hands and embrace the beauty of life's infinite potential. Chapter 11: The Legacy. As Jack Mercer embarked on his journey towards new beginnings, he couldn't help but reflect on the legacy he hoped to leave behind. A legacy shaped by the trials and triumphs of his past, and defined by the impact he had on the world around him. With each step forward, Jack sought to honor the memory of those who had come before him and inspire those who would follow in his footsteps. One of the ways Jack sought to leave his mark on the world was through his work in law enforcement. Despite the challenges he had faced and the hardships he had endured, Jack remained committed to serving and protecting his community, using his skills and expertise to make a difference in the lives of those he swore to defend. Jack also saw his legacy reflected in the relationships he had forged along the way, the bonds of friendship and camaraderie that had sustained him through even the darkest of times. He hoped to be remembered not only as a skilled detective and dedicated public servant, but also as a loyal friend and trusted ally, always ready to lend a helping hand to those in need. But perhaps Jack's most enduring legacy would be the lessons he had learned and the wisdom he had gained along the way. From the depths of despair to the heights of triumph, Jack had experienced the full spectrum of human emotion and resilience, emerging stronger and wiser with each passing challenge. He hoped to pass on these lessons to future generations, inspiring others to never give up in the face of adversity and to always strive for justice and righteousness in all their endeavors. For Jack knew that true greatness was not measured by wealth or power, but by the impact one had on the lives of others and the legacy one left behind for future generations to cherish and emulate. As Jack looked towards the future, he felt a sense of peace settle over him, a quiet confidence born of the knowledge that he had lived a life of purpose and meaning, and that his legacy would endure long after he was gone. And as he stepped boldly into the unknown, he did so with a heart full of hope and a spirit unbroken by the trials of the past. For Jack Mercer knew that his journey was far from over, that the road ahead would be long and winding, filled with challenges and opportunities alike. But he faced the future with courage and determination, secure in the knowledge that his legacy would live on in the hearts and minds of those he had touched along the way. And so, as Jack Mercer faded into the annals of history, his legacy lived on, a testament to the power of resilience, the strength of the human spirit, and the enduring triumph of the human soul.